Well, hello. A lot of people have written me and asked, how do you do a chart? What do you do when you read a chart for somebody like a Horary Chart? And I thought, okay, well, why don't I put up an easy one? This came to me a couple of years ago. It was about an artist who wanted to produce a show about his work, wanted to do an art show. And so I thought, okay, let's show the chart. And it was so blatantly clear that this was going to turn out the way it did, that I thought, wow, this is an easy chart for classroom instruction. So well, let's begin with Gemini as the rising sign, because this is our focal point. This is the person asking the question. And of course, the person asking the question, being Gemini, is ruled by the sign of Mercury. So the Mercury and the Gemini work together here, and we can see that the projection of the personality is over here in the 6th house of slings and arrows and sticks and stones. And you can see it's in the sign of Scorpio. Well, the idea of it being in the 6th house already suggests that the person is somewhat concerned about the outcome of the show and outcome of how these things are going to turn out. The other ruler of the 1st house, of course, always the sub-ruler, is the emotional side. So as Mercury is the head of the game, we're going to notice that the emotional side of this is the moon. And we can see here that the moon is in the last degree of Virgo, again, under the sign of Mercury, its ruler. So these two things are telling me about this person and what he thinks the show might do for him. Okay. Now, the first thing we want to look at is that this Mercury is under a very strong and powerful Mars. And so the people who are going to help him have some connection in the art world, apparently, because he's an artist. He wants to show artwork. And so these two people here, the Sun and Mars, are going to be helpful to him. The outcome of this, of course, is the 4th house, and the display of advertising, the 3rd house. Both of them are in the 6th house, again, weak. And so this cadent weak house of the helpers, of the outcome, of the advertising, and of the person himself in the 6th house are all indicating that chances are this is not going to be a very lucrative show. The next thing we want to do is look at the people that may be attending the show, which of course is the 7th house. These are the people who are willing to buy his material. And so we have to see what kind of people are going on here and how generous are they going to be. Well, off the bat, we say to ourselves, wow, look at this. We have a nice trine to Jupiter, 2 sextiles here. This ought to be a good showing. And yet, when we take a closer look, when we start using the dignities of the chart, we notice that this is not true. We notice that the people themselves are in Virgo, the fall of Jupiter. This is not a good situation. That's also the detriment of Jupiter, not fall, the detriment of Jupiter. It's in the opposite sign what it rules. It always rules Pisces, and in the opposite sign it's its detriment. So the detriment here is telling us that these people are not willing to pay any kind of money, that's any value for this person's work. The other thing is the people's money itself is ruled by Saturn. Saturn, you notice, is in its own sign, and being in the sign of Aquarius means that their money is going to stay in their pocket. It's not going anywhere. And so the two things here are telling us that this is not turning out to be any much near of a success as it could be. I was going to say earlier that when I said fall for Jupiter, I meant fall for Venus. Venus is in its fall because it's normally exalted by the sign of Pisces. Here it's on the opposite side, so here we're looking at the fact that it's in its fall in Virgo, under the auspices of a 6th house Mercury. This show is not looking too promising. The moon, the emotional side of this, 29 degrees Virgo. And that Virgo is also under the sign of the 6th house presentation of Mercury, Scorpio. And it's going to change signs here pretty quickly. That's at 29 degrees. Well, that's going to change signs, and it's going to the sign of Libra, or Libra, whichever one you prefer. And that will then be under the auspices or the rulership of a fallen Venus. Again, not a good situation. So here we're looking at a possibility of a failure of this show. Even the part of fortune in the 11th house of hopes, wishes, desires, safe haven, and friendships are all pointing to, again, the sign that rules Taurus, Venus, in its fall. So I have Jupiter in its detriment, I have Venus in its fall, I have weak 6th house planets, and I have people who are coming to see the show in their detriment, and I see their money. Saturn is in its own sign, meaning their money stays in their own pocket. Therefore, I told the guy, do not put on a show at this time. It won't work for you. It'll be a failure. And of course, being somewhat of an astrologer, he says, yeah, but look, it's all trines and sextiles. I said, well, it just makes it easier for them to say no and look at it. He produced an awful lot of money in the show, which is where we see the sign here, the money sign. Cancer, ruled by the moon, moves into the idea of the Venus party, which is in its fall. And it gives us the fifth house of fun in the show itself, is creative work. And that goes under the sign of Venus, its fall again. So his money takes a fall. His artwork is taking a fall. He's taking a fall. This whole thing is all saying, not a good time to do this show. The outcome? He did not sell one piece of work, and they were very reasonably priced. Some of them were gorgeous pieces of work. I mean, this guy is really a good artist. Yet, nothing happened. It was a show that he spent a lot of money on food and champagne, by the way. That was the expense that went here. Food and champagne. And the advertising was a little bit expensive. You can see here's a big splash by the sign of Leo in the fourth house. Leo, big presentation in the sixth house. And in Scorpio. Not doing well. Mars took over. The interesting thing about this Martian point is that there was one man who showed up and was telling the bartender he didn't know how to open champagne. Really created a row. The bartender quit because of him, and so this guy here that was run by the sun, he took over the job, and he was opening the champagne bottles and making sure people had champagne. Very great chart. As you can see, it easily unravels here when we look at it this way. So there you have a little idea of how I read a chart. If you'd like to know more, go to my website, kaldu.com, kaldu.com. You can see the stuff over there that I do as well. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you after a while.